Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Zevox. So today what I'm bringing for you guys is sort of like a tutorial on how to create the best possible M4A1 class setup for Warzone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each individual attachment and talk about why the attachments that I mention are the best attachments to go with. So you can actually see all my attachments here from the start, but I think it's worth going over why each attachment is the best. So what we start off with is the monolithic suppressor. The suppressor, I mean, in Warzone you gotta go with a suppressor. You need some sort of suppressor just because you're going to be at a massive disadvantage if your enemies can see your location on the minimap. And obviously with the monolithic suppressor what you get is additional damage range, which is definitely very useful in Warzone. So as you can see, your range goes up a lot, your accuracy goes up a lot, and overall the best muzzle to go with. So definitely go with monolithic suppressor for your muzzle. You get increased accuracy, range. Your mobility goes down a bit, but we're going to talk about why that isn't a big deal later on. So barrel, definitely go with M16. This is probably one of the most overpowered barrels you can get on any assault rifle. It's just insane. I mean, obviously you can see there your accuracy goes up quite a lot. Your range goes up like literally so much. It's a massive difference in terms of range. And even your recoil control is improved a bit, so everything about this is amazing. Again, mobility goes down a bit, your aim down sight speed and your movement speed goes down a bit, but the reason this isn't a huge deal in Warzone is because this isn't necessarily going to be a fast-paced class. This isn't like an SMG type of class where you want to be able to move around fast. With this weapon, as you can see, what we're going for is a very good range and good damage, so we're mostly going to be getting kills for from sort of mid to far range battles, so we're not too worried about the mobility with this setup in general. Obviously we don't want the mobility to be terrible, but it's not as important to have amazing mobility on this setup. We're going to skip the laser and go down to the optic. As I just mentioned, this setup is going to be especially useful for mid to far range battles, so I definitely think that some sort of optic is necessary. Personally, I'll go with the operator reflex sight. It improves your accuracy a bit, and I just find it to be the most sort of comfortable optic to use. You know, it's not too much, but it's not too little. It's ideal. There's some optics that are just too much, like zoom in too much or take up too much space on the gun, which just becomes a hassle. So I think this is the best sort of in-between optic to go with. We're gonna skip stock and now let's go over to the ammunition. So this is the thing that I'm not necessarily 100% on, because you could go with 50 round mags, but you could also go with 60 round mags. The reason I personally go with 50 round mags is because I did mention mobility not being too important earlier, but as I said as well, we don't want our mobility to go down too much. We don't want it to be terrible. And we've already got two different attachments that decrease our mobility. So I think 50 round mags should be enough. Like, you know, that 10 bullet difference can make a big difference at times, but I don't think it will be necessary within every gunfight. I think 50 rounds is pretty decent, and you should be able to kill 2 enemies with 50 rounds, maybe even 3. Obviously there will be situations where 60 rounds might have saved your life, so at the end of the day it's for you to decide, but personally I would go with 50 round mags just because we don't want to sacrifice our mobility too much. And then finally, underbarrel commando foregrip. I just think with assault rifles this is always the one to go with. You get increased recoil stabilization and stability, and you do have to sacrifice a bit of movement speed as well. But with this setup and with this attachment and all these attachments in general, what we've just done is we've created amazing accuracy, if you look at the accuracy bar, I mean, we've increased accuracy drastically. We've got amazing range and we've got very good control. But what we have done is we've sacrificed mobility quite a bit. So with this gun, you're not going to be moving around too fast, like I mentioned earlier. You're not going to be running around like you would with an SMG perhaps. But overall, it's very good. You can get kills from far away with good accuracy and range. And you can also get good kills from sort of mid-range battles. And if it comes to it, this does obviously work in close range battles as well. Now obviously it won't be as good as an SMG, but that's what I want to talk about now. So for your secondary weapon, I'd go with an RPG, and the reason for that is because I think the Ghost perk is very useful. But obviously we're talking about Warzone, and in Warzone it's not too difficult to find some sort of SMG, sniper rifle, whatever you might want as your secondary. Now usually what I'll do personally is I'll go for a sniper rifle as my secondary if I can find one. But with this setup, I think it could make sense to go for a shotgun or an SMG as your secondary, just because the M4A1 setup that we've created is actually very good for long range battles already. So obviously it won't compare to a sniper rifle. You won't be getting kills from 200 meters away, but you can get kills from, you know, 50, 60, 70 meters away. And it is very decent for long range battles anyway. But yeah, for now we're going to stick with the RPG, just because the perk, which we're about to move on to, Ghost, is very useful, and the only way to get a primary weapon as your secondary is obviously to sacrifice Ghost, which we don't want to do. So now perks. Cold Blooded just makes the most sense for Warzone in my opinion. Everyone that has a sniper nowadays uses thermal optics, and this pretty much protects you from that, so it's definitely the best one for Warzone. As I said, Ghost, obviously if you don't know by now, what this does is it will take you off heartbeat scanners, and nearly everyone uses a heartbeat scanner nowadays, so this will definitely give you a good advantage over those sorts of people. And then a tracker or shrapnel. A lot of people go for shrapnel, but I personally go with tracker. I think it's just a lifesaver when it comes to, you know, tracking enemies, or a lot of the time you don't even realize that there's an enemy inside your building, but then suddenly you see footsteps and you know that there's an enemy and that you've got to be careful. For lethal, obviously this is more of a subjective thing. You can go with whatever you want. Sometimes I go with Semtex, sometimes I go with Claymore. Obviously Claymore's quite useful for Warzone, especially if you plan on sort of camping in a certain building. So I'll go with Claymore, and then obviously the no-brainer is a heartbeat scanner as your tactical. By far the best tactical weapon in Warzone. Nothing else comes close. You can keep using it over and over again, and it tells you where your enemies are within 50 meters away. So yeah guys, that is the setup. Now what I will show you is a little bit of gameplay of me using this setup in Warzone, but that will be it for my commentary here. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it, subscribe to my channel for more of this type of content, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for watching.
Care package marked.
Moving. I see movement. Ah! Come on! I'm taking fire! Ah!